This video is sponsored by Suicide. Say my name during an attempt for a 20% discount. I'm not sure on what. Maybe you say 20% alive? You know that thing when you want to die all the time? Life. Yeah, you guys get it. Last time I tried gallows humor, I died on stage. Yes, suicidality is deeply inherent to me. It's ironically something I live with. Rarely to the extent of making plans, as I'm seemingly meant to reassure you. I'm shit at plans, I'm ADHD. It's more a passive suicidality, like suicidal emphasis on the idle. I am gonna overuse the word in this video because our language hasn't put much thought into different ways to describe it. People who kill themselves don't go on to say much. And no matter how many times I dwell on it, autocorrect steers away from the word suicide as if that will make me commit divide instead. Focus, there we go. I don't consider suicidality an illness because my life is illness. Suicidality is optimism. I'd like to express as clearly as possible that this ain't a cry for help. I ain't in specific danger. I don't consider dying a bad thing, but I'm not specifically close as I publish this compared to the whole rest of my life. I'm just describing my perspective. I actually scripted this months ago, and even then it wasn't urgent, and I don't consider it high stakes either way. In leaving comments open on this video, I'm trusting that my perspective can be respected, and I ask not to hear reactions to what I'm articulating that invest sentiment in me as a living thing. But I'm interested in hearing others' perspectives. The phrase cry for help is fallacious too. It rests on the premise of help being possible. Sometimes it's not, and you can still cry, if you can cry. Anyway, it's illegal to help people do suicide, so I'm not crying for that. I don't particularly like the act of suicide, because it's messy and takes effort. I'm busy, and there's so little understanding of it as an option that it's kind of gotta be done in secret, which leaves it as a traumatic surprise, most of all to whoever has to, find you. But if there were an acceptable way, yes please. My attitude to this stuff seems impish because of how transgressive the topic is, but it's also what you get when you affix the mild whimsy of my outlook to the seemingly high stakes of mortality. So get used to an impertinent addressal of traumatic stuff. I don't even consider these dark thoughts just logical reactions. If they're dark thoughts to someone else, that's not my problem. If you blanket oppose suicide, consider if there's anyone in any circumstance ever for whom you'd agree it's a reasonable decision. Then broaden your consideration for the myriad others for whom it's also a reasonable decision because your scrutiny has no bearing on their experience, the discomfort they stand to put an end to. I openly hate being alive, and if this video seems like I'm coming out about that, then you didn't know me beforehand. It's in a ridiculous number of my songs.
Stay alive when there's nothing better to do. Suicide.
I hate to exist. Life is incredibly painful. Tend to my resignation. I am predisposed to dying. And I come to die, I come to die, I come to die, I come to die. I'd like to stream and download those hep grooves. Pain and jadedness are obvious in my manner, and that's both intentional and something I couldn't mask anyway. It's a situational reaction. It's a big part of my works and communication because it's a big part of my outlook, which results from my experiences. I'm serious, and that's not a threat, it's an honest expression of what I'm experiencing. I express my seriousness with frivolity, and there's no conscious cruelty to that, it's just not a mainstream manner. Cause it's so taboo. If someone's suicidal, this is addressed by trying to ensure they don't die, so they definitively don't get what they wanted, and nothing gets better. They're just stuck with life, which is the thing they're trying to get away from. Yeah, not true for every case. Let me disclaim that only once. I'm just saying anti-suicide measures are about preventing the act, not the status. I think my voice might not help in objecting to the taboo because I think even doing suicide is fine and we're not supposed to think that, even if we're supposed to talk about how we think about it. Human morality is biased toward remaining alive. It sees life as an inherently positive value to contrast with the negative of death. Maybe that works if you think of death as a subtraction from a positive, but that negative act just brings the status down to neutral, valueless. Zero. Many people experience life as a negative, and from their perspective on this very simplified axis, dying is a positive in comparison. It's important to note that people who are suicidal don't actually want to die per se. Wait, no. Typo. Sorry. Suicidal people want to die because that's what it means. Goals. Want being alive to end, which is done by dying. This video is sponsored. It's possible that if my attitude became mainstream or if I had an influence on an audience, then more people would take the leap. So I should be careful with my outlandish, unacceptable, sectionable instincts. I don't have that audience, but either way, I don't consider that a particularly immoral risk. That hypothetical could significantly reduce the suffering in the world, and there'd be a vast gain in understanding of the things we currently choose not to understand. I knew people who've died that way, and at least 2 people I literally don't know have messaged me during their suicide attempts. Maybe more by the time I publish this. And I grassed them up. In one case, I called an ambulance on them internationally, because apparently I'm a cowardly narc when it comes down to it. It's possible that that's hypocritical of me, or maybe it was the responsible thing to do for those people, because not everyone's experience of suicidality is like mine. Maybe those were cries for help. They're still alive to this day, and I'm kind of sorry. So me, individually, I experience life as a constant strife with rare respite. This involves my disability, specifically chronic pain and fatigue. When I try to seek advice from the industry of medicine, the end of the journey is always, this is stuff you're gonna have to put up with for life, even as it worsens. It's flamboyant, but I feel justified in saying that my body wants to be dead, that I've way outlasted its best before. I've literally been told in several distinct pursuits that medicine has nothing further to offer for agony. That's my best shot at elucidating the logical basis of suicidality. With chronic pain especially, you hear the generic hollow well-wish of, I hope you get better soon. And I'm like, well, I'd like to, but it's widely frowned upon. Yeah, that's a tragedy of being untreated, and maybe historians can disdain that I had to feel this due to medical neglect, but that doesn't change how horrible my one life was. I don't actually aspire to living less unwell, cause that'd mean more life, and I'm really not into that. Yeah, because it's unwell, but I think what I'm about to say is a cliché of teen angst, but that it must be acknowledged that we don't choose to be alive. I guess our idle maintenance against starvation might technically count as a conscious choice, but I used to abstain from that too. We don't choose to come alive. Then we're here and we've got to be perceived and interact and form relationships and stuff. That doesn't come naturally to me. Inexistence suited me much better, and I'll find my way back to it someday. Until then, I've kind of chosen to spend the being alive part expressing my experience. I disdain life's subtextual axiom as a non-consensual commitment to living as long as possible, because the last bit of life sucks, and the rest of life sucks too. Actual suiciding, though, I tend not to get around to. You could say I have commitment issues. I don't know, it's embarrassing that I've reached old age, outlived my grandparents, it's absurd. But life goes on. which could be an empty platitude, but I see it as
Memento vivere.
a tragic observation. I struggle to be ready to be dead on an admin level. There's kind of always something to tidy up. I don't want to inconvenience anyone, which is part of why I'd like to be dead. There's the potential emotional damage as well as the logistics. People are invested in the people they know remaining alive because it's a reassuring kind of constancy. If I die while people still know me, they might want to do a funeral or something, and I'd hate that. And it's even more admin with an exploitative industry behind it. This feels like when you try and shut your computer down and it says there's active processes you've got to wait out, so eventually you just hold down the jugular. But the power button. I recognize that this insecurity being material to my instincts means I'm not as suicidal as someone who'll go and do it, which I don't intend this as a competitive sport. I don't even intend suicidality, I just intend to die. Though maybe I can still win if there's an endurance category. Who's been suicidal for the longest? I think that distinction is what delineates the chronic, passive form from the acute, assertive, and potentially irrational form. I think I was briefly a delightful child, and then the world stepped in. Social interaction, having to grow and be perceived, and I got real sullen. And I can only apologize to my parents for that fake out. There was bullying, dysmorphia, disillusion, insomnia, dentistry. People treated me like a child. Childhood felt like something to endure until you're free in adulthood, and those were a whole lot of years to wait. I sincerely felt it that way as a constant drag, a limbo. And then adulthood shit anyway. Neither's worthwhile, but now there's the whole sunk cost fallacy to it. Like, all the time I didn't suicide because I thought life could get more bearable would be wasted if I'd sorted myself out now. But it's actually wasted either way. I know I aesthetically fit the profile of a depressed boy. I mean, more depressed than boy. Not everyone who frequently changes their hair color has lethal mental health issues, just most of us. It's 'cause dying yourself sounds like, maybe suicide blonde? The stuff about me is off-putting. It'd make it difficult for those who care about me and subscribe to mainstream morality. I'm hoping that expressing it makes it more respectable. People talk of our purpose in life because they've fallen for the idea of meaning. The unintelligent will say something about God. Gotta envy the unintelligent with their purpose and their much more contented lives. Unbearable thinky boys might say our purpose is to reproduce, but that just procrastinates and outsources purpose forever. It's descendants all the way down, and further suffering. I'm much more drawn to the hippie answer of we're here to care, to spread the love, to make others' lives better. But I'm aware that one's a facade too, and the human race isn't very good at humanity. I'm not always at a passive level regarding getting off. Yeah, getting off. You know, this mortal coil, that's what getting off means. Offing myself, I'd become off, so I'd get off. That's gotta be it. Why, when people say the phrase getting off, they seem to be referring to something satisfying. La grande mort. Acquiring the status of being deactivated. Getting off. Learn some words. I've not actually attempted it since childhood, since single-digit age. I'm just not that ambitious anymore. Typically when people write about suicidality, it's from conquering it, but I don't expect or intend to do that. I'd rather conquer the experience of being alive. Suicidality to me is a rational reaction to extreme chronic discomfort. I know living for me means remaining in chronic extreme discomfort. I can actually think of one way to stop being suicidal. I think about it all the time. I prefer not to call it living with suicidality though, but being bad at suicidality. It's a particularly embarrassing thing to be bad at. I am thinking of setting up a suicide support line off one of the beams in my ceiling. Yeah, I like jokes where the punchline is always that. They resonate with how I think. One thing I'd lose if I went through with it would be these jokes. Suicidality is obviously linked to depression, and there are overlaps, but I see suicidality as more kind of assertive and idealist. Like, you gotta be working towards something. You know how the humans have ambition, life plans? I think that's where it is for me. Always following that star, something you might eventually be able to realize. And just from the selfish perspective, which is the only relevant perspective here, of what would make my life holistically better, which is ending it. Obviously, death is inevitable, or you gotta hope it is, gotta have something to look forward to. It is important to realize that wanting to die is just a temporary feeling, though, just like being alive. Of course, I'm led to question, why do I commit to being alive? And I kinda don't, it just keeps happening. Addicted to breathing, I'm deep in the habit of nutrition overly lately. Got a whole job I'm meant to be at. It'd be cool if we only had to do life if we really meant to. Maybe the real question is, what keeps me alive theoretically? What's worth staying alive for? I've been unable to get off because I have work-in-progress ideas, and work-in-progress is just really embarrassing when others see it. It looks inept. For the last, 3 years, I've failed to record the songs I've come up with, despite knowing how they're meant to sound. That's more an attention deficit thing probably, or physical illness or disability or lack of motivation. Call it executive block. Occasionally, when I've got time to actually focus on it, I realize my songs aren't all that good, kinda hokey, and nothing I do has value, 'cause nothing has value. And nobody would mind or really notice if I don't publish anything else, and that's potentially really freeing. Maybe I'm done, maybe I can break this compulsion. But then I get another bloody idea. Even this video I've meant to make for years, jotted ideas, scripted it in December and procrastinated it further, not particularly because of the heavy themes, it just happens that this project has gone that way. Maybe I've wanted to be that extra bit sure that I'm saying this one right. Here in these videos, I'm expressing my experiences and instincts, even the aspirationally self-destructive ones, because I feel there could be good in doing so, feasibly increasing understanding. Maybe if I didn't have unfinished projects, YouTube things, music things, then I'd be able to get gone. And that's part of my motive of getting stuff done, and it's ultimately quite efficient. I publish a lot. Really, this part has been true for so long that I can't really remember before it. It's been a continuous queue of ideas since childhood. I feel I envy terminality, which feels improper, but I'm still saying what I feel. A sense of definitive ending could settle my unease, because while I'm alive, I've got to deal with that. I find ideation a funny term, because the way I see it, the idea's already there and already pretty good and idealistic. Ideal. I think chronic suicidality might function differently to the acute version we all know. All of us, right? Relatable observational material, folks. Please subscribe. I feel the culture around suicidality could do with a lot of work. How we speak of suicide prevention and not suicidality prevention. So it's actually just suicide postponement. There's a suicide prevention day, and I'm led to wonder how many suicides there tend to be on the day after that. But actually that day is the 11th of September, so it might be that people who experience suicidality as brief spells can be taught to wait from it and have a different state for the rest of being alive than when they're into it. This bloody sign was a thing on Instagram at one point, and it's from the dumbass perspective of someone who's never killed themselves. Look, doesn't end the chances of things getting worse, but does end the chances of things getting better. That's just logically impossible. It definitively ends both, and some might consider that a worthwhile gambit. This is just a deepity to satisfy those who are simple enough to fall for it, with no bearing on the actual instinct, 'cause it's false. Anti-suicide campaigns can and should do much better. But I'm not gonna contribute, 'cause I'm not anti-suicide. I think it should be respected as an option for people. Maybe I should say people of sound mind, but maybe those of unsound mind have a pretty great reason to themselves to escape too. I know these are cancelable thoughts, but they're there and sincere, and I swear there's something relevant to them. I believe all our experiences should be consensual, but that sadly doesn't apply to being alive. If it were a respected option, I would have definitely gone for it by now, obviously multiple times over, which doesn't make sense, but only because the world doesn't. I think around 2013-14, I'd given up the most entirely and had least going on the most intensive suicidality, and I bloody started YouTubing and kind of missed the opportunity. But also 2015-17, and 2009, and 2002-7. Then there's the 90s. These are times I didn't die, and yeah, I regret that. I'm phrasing this as an intentional farce, but I'd like to point out seriously that there's no reasonable way to segment chronic suicidality. Every year of my accidental life involves this instinct, and most of them to a severe extent. And just before the pandemic, I'd accepted that life doesn't get bearable and I should probably get out, but even then I didn't bother. Maybe I was granting some last chance stretched ridiculously across the years since. Maybe I couldn't find a COVID-compliant way to kill myself. I think not managing to do it for this long shows how silly an instinct it is in me. It's just a waste of time if I don't put it to use. Like life. Life is real tedious, and maybe I stick with it out of an unrewarding curiosity, a kind of empty faith in it becoming more bearable, and the unsourced human construct of an idea that it's the best we've got. I feel what stopped me is a kind of executive dysfunction, or at least executiontive dysfunction. I'm such a wreck at being alive that I can't manage stuff like that, can't get around to it. I'm in pain all the time and immerse in projects as distraction, but can't organize in myself the particular skills for suicide. It's feasible that I could eventually improve my well-being to the extent that I'm capable of it, but until then I dangle below the bar of assertiveness, tediously alive. I don't know how well expressing my dissatisfaction with life fits in this video, because this video is about suicidality, which I see as assertive and idealist, the remedy to life. Life's a raw deal. So many awakeness spells are just painful and unusable, just a spell of torture until the next retry turns out the same way. In 2021, I realized I was probably going to survive another damn year, but I should really get that into focus, why I put up with living. My dad gets me the Pokemon calendar each year, and I don't really use it because I don't do stuff on days. I hate days. But there was especially nothing to do in 2021, the pandemic year. 2020 didn't consciously start out that way. So I just devoted 21 to denoting which days were definitively suicidal for me, like not just a passing whim, but a headline preoccupation. That's a lot. I had a whim that if it was over 50%, then I should actually commit to committing. It would be mathematically, measurably the right thing for me to do. And here's the big number, Unveil. 160 days. 44%. I'd not checked that until now, and it's disappointed me to learn that I'm staying. Feels like one of those times you flip a coin, but you already know how you want it to land. Although you could make an argument for me wanting both sides of this coin. It's not a very scientific method, but 44% is just about the perfect result to ensure I remain alive, but with maximum regret. I didn't continue this scene for 2022, but the balance was around the same, and it rings true for prior years, maybe fluctuating from 30%-ish to 60-something. There's not much of a pattern. I feel there's nothing to observe. It doesn't significantly correlate with seasons or weekdays or Pokemon types. The thing it correlates most with is being alive. Fucking hate that. In 2016-ish, I was serious enough about it that I thought, I guess if I do the do without having gone to therapy, then it could be said that that boy had needed therapy. So I went to therapy, which is not as simple as it sounds, but it's kind of weird to assess an assessment of my circumstances. I don't think counselling had much in particular to offer me, and just getting there and committing to a daytime appointment made life more of a trial. I think for something I treated as a last chance, last resort, I just let it feel like it won, without it throwing anything convincing my way. Just, if I act like it's working, then it'll be happy. I lament tricking myself into staying alive like that. I quickly ran out of free sessions. It was over, then I was still here, and nothing was better. I think passive suicidality has affected my ability to long-term plan. I think one psychological thing to dig into is like a dread of remaining alive. I did used to find it terrifying to state intentions for something more than a couple of weeks away, because it meant I've got to stay alive in exponential pain for that long. And anyway, I've got other things kind of planned that would mean I'm unavailable forever. I've tried looking up whether anyone's named that as a phobia, and I can't pin it down because people haven't described my experience enough. I kind of want to call it chronophobia, but I guess it's not exactly that. Maybe like melanticophobia, but I'm not here to make up Greek words. And either way, it's literally rational. Hardly even fear, just familiarity with what life is like as a continuing experience, and an instinct that I want it to stop. I think my ideals are about minimizing suffering, causing as little harm as possible, confronting harmful things, maybe living an apology for the ethically unjustifiable status of living. It takes some maturity and self-esteem to be able to apply this ethic to my own suffering, which is called being alive. And yet, I remain. My philosophies ended up as, well, I wish I was dead, and didn't manage that, so this is just what the other option looks like. The absurdity of remaining. I can live with that, annoyingly. Assessing the evidence of my ludicrous, continuous life, I can't actually expect that I'll cause my own death as much as I might intend to. It's never happened yet. It's clear that I go on, though eventually I won't, and then I'll suffer less by not existing. At least when I do die, you can say, it's what he would have wanted.